Hello, everyone, and welcome Diana and Josh, who are architects, designers, and real estate investors born in Medellin, Colombia, who recently quit their jobs to go all in on real estate investing, co-hosting, and boutique hotels. Welcome to the show, Diana and Josh.
Thank you so much, Olivia.
So I guess, Diana, Josh, tell me a little bit, like, who were you two before the whole business, before going all in on real estate? Like, what were you doing? Where are you guys from? All of that.
So I guess this was 3 years ago. Maybe I'll just get started. We're both architects, like you mentioned. We met in grad school. We both have backgrounds in architecture and construction management. And we were living in Seattle at the time. Josh, I used to work, now I don't anymore, but I used to work for a firm that's headquartered in Seattle. And Josh's company was headquartered in Kansas City, but he was moved to Seattle to work on this big project in Seattle. But yeah, we were both just very passionate about what we went to school for. Super passionate for design, super passionate for the built environment. Never in a million years did we think that we were going to end up quitting my job or doing anything related to art, to development or construction.
When we got started, the goal was to make ourselves work optional.
Yes.
And not necessarily quit and I still have my job. I'm Josh, and I'm from Red Bank, New Jersey. I have a background in finance, construction management, and architecture. And I think that neither of us wanted to quit our jobs. We wanted to make it work optional. We wanted to essentially get into real estate, though, to allow it to be kind of free.
Okay.
To I don't know how you would describe it better.
Yeah.
It's like,
I was just gonna add, I think really what happened before was, I think just like everyone, we were in COVID, stuck in our apartment. Because of Josh's job and being relocated to Seattle, we were actually living for free. And literally all of our expenses were paid for. So we had been saving all this money. And I think when COVID happened, I think it just put a lot of things into perspective to us of what are we doing? What are we doing all this for? But yeah, I think that the point really hit for us was when in 2021, my dad got sick from COVID and later on he passes away. So I think we had an initial thought before that of already questioning our path and why are we working so hard for it? Is this really the life we want to lead? That I think intensified completely once my dad passed away in 2021. And then a couple months later, then Josh's dad passes away from cancer.
Ugh.
That was a very transformative year for us. And that's really what got everything started.
Totally. I'm so sorry to hear that. And that's COVID in general was just such a transformative year for so many people, right? It kind of made everyone take a step back and be like, what the heck are we doing with our lives, with everything, which, is such a blessing in so many ways, but there's also so many hardships that came from that. But, it's all we can really do is take those experiences and put them for the better and live life to our fullest going forward. So that's why I always say, I'm thankful for that period of time because it really just kind of helped a lot of people just open their eyes and figure out what they actually want to do with their lives.
100%.
So I guess how quickly from when, you realized that to actually quitting your jobs, what did that look like? And how did you prepare yourself to even get to that point where you could quit your jobs?
So like Josh said, the goal was never to quit our jobs. When we got started, we just, with all the questioning, losing our dads, architecture is a very, very demanding profession where a 40-hour work week is really unheard of. We can typically work 50, 60 hours on average. That's the norm. And it can easily go up to plus 100 hours a week. So it's a very hard profession where we, even though we were very passionate for it, we were making a lot of sacrifices to be in that position, like sacrifices of seeing family, of traveling, especially like I'm from Colombia. So going to Colombia, like it's super hard. Josh is from New Jersey. It was traveling across the country to go see his family. And it's always around deadlines and work. So even though the initial plan wasn't to quit initially, it was just to maybe take some of the relief off of our professions, at least financially, where we could really feel like we were doing what we loved with architecture, but not necessarily feel like we depended on it financially. So when we first got started, exactly what you said, like COVID was a blessing as well because we were working remotely. And we tried doing the investing in Seattle. We looked at properties there. It's incredibly expensive. So we quickly realized we cannot do what we're trying to do here and achieve our goals. So we were fortunate that at the time, the timing of it worked out really well, where Josh's project was ending and he was supposed to move back to Kansas City per his contract. And since I was working remotely 100% of the time, I asked my company, can I continue working remotely for a whole year? Even though they were starting to open up the firm, I asked for a 1-year period. And we really thought that during that year, we were going to set up ourselves, like, again, not to quit, but
to build a team.
To build the team, to build get to know the city really well, to then go back to our life in Seattle and just have passive income coming in. I think what's funny is I think once you start relating yourself to different circles, talking to different people, your mindset starts also expanding. When we first got started, we were like, oh, long-term rentals only. We do not want to mess with short-term rentals. Like, we were in this, like, we call it like the 2X path of just like one step at a time, like, and nothing wrong with it. It's just that, like, now we look back and we're like, wow, like everything has changed from where we are now and what our goals are now. And I think it's all because of the people we've surrounded ourselves with. And I think that that's the reason why we were able to quit, at least for me to quit my job 3 years later, is because we have exponentially grown our goals and our dreams. And we've gone so much farther than we even thought we would in just a 12-month period as we initially thought.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think that, the real estate market's obviously cooled down, and it was more about being adaptable and making sure that we were growing in other aspects. We really tried to find ways that we could leverage our skill sets in architecture and in construction and in design in general. Deanna, being a very organized individual as well, was able to create other venues that she has now been able to devote her time to since she did quit her job. But I think the big point of where I'm going with all this is that we spent a lot of time working on network, because it all came down to how important our connections were to people, how much value we were able to bring to others, and not really necessarily asking for anything in return, but knowing that there's always going to be a person and an opportunity, because other people, you're just fanning out your potential chances to find the right path by having a bigger and bigger network.
Totally. Okay, so a few things I kind of want to unpack here. First off, like, so did you two meet in like school, or did you meet working? How did you guys actually like kind of, go into this all together?
We met in grad school.
Yep.
As we were both doing our masters in architecture and construction
Oh my gosh,
management.
awesome. And so did you like work at the same firm as well? And then it kind of developed from there, or?
Not at all. We, and this is a very long story, but we had already been dating for a few years. We wanted to stay together, but because I'm international, my rules have been different, and I had to immediately after grad school get a job. I didn't have time to like figure it out. In architecture, you have to build a portfolio to apply for jobs. I was doing all of that during school because I didn't have time to do it after. So I very quickly got this job in Seattle. Josh didn't know yet where he was going yet. But his dad was already sick with
Mhm.
cancer, and they were on the East Coast. So the commitment was that the farthest west he would go away from his father was to Kansas City. That was like a 2-hour period where he could get home safely that same night if an emergency were to happen. Seattle was just too far. So we actually did long distance for a little bit. But then it worked out that his company relocated him to Seattle. So that's how everything got started in Seattle.
Yeah, things were looking up for a little while with my dad's cancer. He had multiple myeloma, and I became more comfortable with the idea of going a little further away. I had an opportunity to basically move to Seattle, which was a great opportunity, both from the work that I do. I'm still employed at the same company. We do a lot of sports venues, entertainment, big scale projects, a lot of all commercial work. And the goal was that, I could both move back into the same space with Diana, as well as progress my career doing what I love to do. And so it was a win-win in every possible way. The whole COVID thing happened where thankfully we were stuck in a 700 square foot apartment together and not like halfway across the country from each other. And yeah, that's kind of where we generated the desires that we were just talking about a moment ago.
No, completely. And like, I like that before you guys also touched on the fact that, but before all of your trips, all of your vacation time, everything was revolved around going to see family, right? And so like you don't really have and I started to see that too when I was working in corporate. I was like, wait, how am I on 2 weeks of vacation or 3 weeks of vacation a year? How am I supposed to go see my family, see my friends, go on actual vacation? Like it just doesn't happen. And it's crazy that is just like seen as the norm where, we come, and it's so weird that we kind of created that in corporate America, because growing up in school, you had 3 months off during the summer, a month off during Christmas, spring break, all of these occasions to go on vacation or to go travel or go do things. So like that's something also just to consider when you're thinking about like what career path you want to go on, and how like real estate really can give you that optionality, right? And you guys even said at the beginning is the goal wasn't necessarily to quit your job. It was to give you the option so that you could work it when you wanted to, right? And then take off time when you wanted to. So I guess how has that shifted in terms of the freedom that you've had over time?
I think you have a better answer to this one than I do, because I'll speak first in this one just because mine's simpler than Deanna's. I have still, I think, maintained that I want work to be optional. I like what I do. We're both passionate about what we do. Not to say that our real estate ventures are not also part of our passion, but I think that for me, I like having the W-2, at least for now. It gives me a little bit of, I think, stability in my life that 2 entrepreneurs would, I think, absolutely destroy me. So I'm helpful on the entrepreneurship side of things, but that's definitely more so Deanna's role right now. We've taken advantage of the fact that I can maintain a W-2 to allow her to reach, I think, more aggressively and take some more risks than we would otherwise be comfortable doing. So we're definitely trying to take advantage of that as well. So I'll let you continue from there.
Yeah, I think for me, it has the deeper I've dove into real estate, the more excited I have gotten about it. I had a role in my firm of being like very heavy in design, very front end of projects. Love meeting with clients, like really selling a project or a vision to a client. And I absolutely love that. Never in a million years did I think I was going to enjoy underwriting complex like syndications and like spend my Friday night doing it with a glass of wine and actually loving every minute of it. That would have never crossed my eyes, but that's what we are right now. Like I have truly, I think to me, it has been in a way liberating that I have been able to find through real estate a way to bring my passion about design into it. And I think at the beginning, I struggled a lot with identity of, well, I'm an architect. how does that fit into me buying single family homes and barely renovating them with like, I went to school, I do these large commercial buildings. Like it just seemed to clash all the time. And I think through the years, through being in the right networks, talking to people that are like 100 steps ahead of us, just realizing that that identity was not like, it actually became like empowering of like, okay, how can I bring this into everything we're doing? And now I'm really excited because real estate has become a venue where I can do what I'm passionate about. Now we're going after boutique hotels, more on the scale that I'm used to working in, that I went to school for. And doing real estate, like I'm underwriting, I'm talking to, like I'm involved in like beginning to end of a project and then get to keep it and make the cash flow. So it's sort of like it connected all the dots for me in a way that architecture itself now feels like it lacks this other part of it that I found through real estate. So to me, it has become really liberating and really exciting. Like I wouldn't say I'm working any less hours than I was before. But it feels a lot more productive. It feels like I'm actually helping myself and my future and my family and our family. Versus I think now when I look back at everything I did before, it feels not wasteful, but sort of like, how does this benefit me at the long term? And how does this add value to my own life, my own children, my parents? Like we want to give back to our moms. Like it's not the same any longer. Like it doesn't fuel me, and the passion is not the same any longer.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, go for it.
I was just going to say that the big part of that too is there's this freedom of time. Like we can choose. I think that the long-term goal, both for us now, is that we'll have the time to devote to family. If 100% of that, if we wanted to, like we don't need to necessarily just take on another project if we feel like our time is better spent in other venues. I think that gets back to, losing both of our parents and being so committed to having to finish a task at hand. I literally watched my dad kind of fall into a bad state, but I was so focused on the project that I had at the time that it was like, I'll eventually get back home. I will eventually. And I had a very small period of time where I was actually able to enjoy, spending time with him because I was so focused on the tasks that I needed to be focused on at the time. So I think that's a big thing to highlight for that too.
Totally. And it's so interesting too, because I talk to so many real estate investors, and a lot of it always like comes down to giving back to parents, giving back to family. I know for me, like one of my big whys is my parents are immigrants, and they we went through the ringer growing up. And I never personally experienced it because I was so young, but like looking back now on everything that they did and accomplished, I'm like, gosh, you guys really did everything you possibly could for us, which is beautiful and so amazing. And part of this is I want to be able to give as much as I possibly can. And when I looked at my trajectory within corporate America, if I stayed there long term, I really wouldn't be able to build something that had so much longevity and had the, possibility of really creating a financially free life that I'd be able to give back to my parents with. And so that's part of the reason that I kind of dived deep into that too.
Strong
yeah.
Right.
So another thing that I love that you touched on too is about that identity piece, right? Before, especially within architecture, I think sometimes, especially with real estate investing, at first glance, real estate investing really isn't that hard, right? You're just buying houses and putting renters in it, and that's it. So sometimes it's I remember, I used to be a chemical engineer, and quitting my job to go invest in real estate. The number of people that are what? What are you gonna go do? And there really is this de-shedding. So I guess, how did you handle that de-shedding? Do you think it was not necessarily easy, or did you struggle through that in any way, shape, or form?
Oh, absolutely. I think that was probably one of the hardest things and hardest obstacles that I've had to overcome to, I think, get to where we are today. I remember when we first got started, I think it was Brennan Turner who said, like, it doesn't matter what your first purchase is, like what your first rental is, but the shift in your mindset to be able to call yourself a real estate investor is really the momentum you need in order to get to the next
Totally.
one. So I remember even after the first one, people would ask me, like, I would see other people, the way they introduce themselves, and it was always like, hi, I'm a real estate investor. And I was always like, well, but I'm also an
Yeah.
architect. And like, does that mean I can no longer be an architect? Like, it was, especially, most people might not know this, but you would be surprised in architecture, even though we're adjacent to real estate, all the components about real estate are very clearly defined between the contractor, developer, and architect. And especially for architects, the developer and the contractor are the devil. Like, they're evil. But you don't go to the dark side. So to me, even coming clean to my super high-end design firm, saying I am interested in real estate, I would be the black sheep. Like, I would be like, you're not who we thought you were. Like, it was literally like, I'm like, I can't talk about this at work. They're going to be like, what do you mean you're interested in money? You're interested in, and
Okay,
like,
isn't that so interesting though, and so weird, because there's such like a negative connotation, especially within the arts, right? Like, oh, you're gonna like kind of be a cop out and go for the money. It's like, well, you can actually, and like, I know I personally had to have a little bit of a mindset shift around that too. It's like, oh, rich people are, not even that rich people are bad, but it's like, oh, must be nice that you want to go like look for more money. But it's like, no, you can literally do so much more. It's just a resource at the end of the day. And that's the currency, like here in the US, that we exchange goods with. And it's like, the more resources you have, the more you can do. Like, it doesn't make you a good or a bad person. It just gives you the opportunity to invest more and accomplish more and give back more.
cannot agree with you.
I was going to say, I think that the big sell of becoming an architect or going into a creative field is often that you will make a positive impact on the world, and that if you are focused on money, that you are evil. And the irony of that is that it doesn't matter if you're in architecture or in arts or in engineering or finance or any of that. If you use the resources that you gather for good, then that's the most important thing. And the people who make the most decisions are the ones that have the most resources. And so those are the people that need to be more careful about how they use them and what their intentions are. And, they're the ones that get to impact the world in the best way, or the most impactful way, maybe. And so going into real estate investing as an architect or with an architect's mindset, I think is a really powerful thing, because it gives us, we still have the want to do well and want to create better things for the world mindset that we get to now push into something where we have more resources to utilize.
No, I love that. And so you guys also mentioned earlier about that mindset expansion that you had, and that before you were kind of on the 2X path. So explain to me like what that means to you and like kind of how that's developed.
Yeah, I think when you get started with something new, obviously it's terrifying. It's the first thing. It's the first time you're doing something challenging. And I think especially as an adult, I don't know, like as a society, we think that you get a job and you're set. Like, you don't have to learn anymore. You don't have to read any more books. Like, you're set with like evolving or like growing. And I am very much not like that. But I think even like when we got started, like that was a path. It's just like one at a time. Like, you just do a tiny bit better every single day. And obviously your circle and the mindset of the people around you have a huge influence on that. Like, if you're hanging out with people who are drinking, going out every weekend, that their priorities are very different, then that's the mindset you're going to have. That is what's going to be normal for you. And for us, as soon as we got started into real estate, we really, I think one of the big things that we focused on as well was like making really true connections. And we've been able to really call close friends, a lot of like really like people that have like years ahead of us, and like in knowledge and expertise and everything. But we have conversations like friends, and it's really interesting once you put yourself in those conversations and the way that they're thinking and the way that they see the world. And obviously, if you do that enough times, that's going to start impacting the way you see your own life, and you start changing the habits and the things that you're doing every single day. So I think for us, out of fear, obviously at the beginning, you don't want to just dive in. You want to do one step at a time. We were on that 2X path. But I think that was also maybe tying everything together with the identity part is realizing that our identity as architects is actually a benefit and not something to shy from. But how can we use that superpower in quotations of to what can we do with that knowledge? Like that maybe we shouldn't do what everyone else is doing just because that's the way that everyone else got started. Everyone else got started with like a single family home and then another single family home. And eventually you refinance into something bigger. We were like, why would we start on that scale when we have the knowledge to be going after apartment buildings? We have the knowledge and we work in design firms that are super high-end design that maybe we could be doing boutique hotels. And that's when the light bulb went on. And like, why not us? Why? We have all the knowledge for it. We've worked in hundreds of projects of hundreds and millions of dollars. Why can't we take it upon ourselves and that be our challenge? And so I think that that was a big mindset shift of like, how can we combine both our like formal education with everything that we're learning in real estate and the connections we're making in real estate. And that was the biggest pivot for us in terms of mindset. And then I think around the same time, Benjamin Hardy came out with the book 10X is easier than 2X.
I literally it 10X is easier than 2X.
Well, I reread that book and I continuously listen to it in the background. I think I've gone through the whole book probably 4 times, past year and a half since it came out. Because to me, it's constant. Every time I listen to it, I get a different nugget. I've started to apply that into every aspect of my life and every little habit, the way I work out, the way I eat, like the way I sleep, like everything you can, there's a smarter and more efficient way of doing everything. So I'm re-listening to it. And I think to me, that was the most impactful book that it became a filter for us of like every decision we were making. It's sometimes like you let your own fears dictate a lot of the decisions. And a lot of times we were like stand back and be like, wait, that's a 2X way of thinking. Like this is just us hitting our ceiling. Let's get through it. Don't let fear paralyze you. Just keep going. Like you're going in the right direction. And it's been a constant breaking of ceilings.
Being comfortable with imposter syndrome is a big part of that. It's if you're making the comfortable decisions, you're probably not making the right decisions. So understanding that like what is not comfortable right now will help you grow in a way, and it'll help you grow, horizontally and vertically at the same time, rather than in a linear sort of way that I think doing the same thing over and over again.
Completely. And I love also that you said, why not us? Why not me? And I think when you really start to like ask yourself that question, because you look around, especially, and that's why I tell everyone, go to a real estate conference. You look around, everyone's just people. At the end of the day, like no one's that special. Anyone can figure it out. Like, yes, people may have a little bit more experience, but like they're just people, And I know for me, that was a huge awakening. Like, oh, wait, I can figure this out.
Yeah. That was literally the reason why we got into real estate and not like stocks or like any other type of investment, was because through podcasts, like when we're listening to the stories of like people who became millionaires through the stock market, is like, oh, they scrambled for 10 years, ate rice and beans, and lived out of their car. And then 10 years later, the compounding of their money finally made them a millionaire. And I was like, well, doesn't really fit where I am in life. Earlier that would have worked, but like I'm in my 30s, we're married, we want to start a family. Like that doesn't really work anymore. And then the story of the real estate investors in their podcast was, I have no clue what I'm doing. I've messed up 100 times. I got stolen from. I went to school for something completely unrelated to construction. And I'm doing fantastic. And I'm like, okay, this is a lot more achievable. Like, I feel like this group is like just taking action, and like we all get started from the same point of like not knowing anything. And it's just like, you're going to fail, be okay with failing, and just one step in front of the other, and you're going to get
Totally.
there. And I think like that's been like our approach of like just stumbling through real estate to make it work.
Yeah, because even we are, we have some skills and understanding of the language of real estate, but there's so much to learn, and there's something applicable for everybody, no matter what skill set you come in with. You could be great at building relationships, or you love numbers, or you don't like any of that, but you just want to, just be in the room and absorb everything until you feel more confident. The best thing to do, though, is always to just jump in. I think that one thing personally now, as someone who is occasionally a perfectionist, realizing that making mistakes and failing at something, it's only really failure if you decide to pack up and not do it anymore. For me, that's been a huge lesson that real estate has taught me specifically. It's just really important to acknowledge that failure is just a way to understand that you shouldn't do it again that way. So as long as you have that sort of mindset and that mentality, I think you can get to your goals. You can achieve, much bigger things than you ever thought you were capable of doing.
Totally. And, it really just shows you really have to be a lifelong learner, right? Like, I think once we go in the traditional system, you kind of go to school and then you graduate and you go start working. And that's kind of the end of your education, which is like, that's not the way life works. Like, right? You're continuously learning, you're continuously growing, you're continuously a student. And, there are so many people who flipped 100 houses and then they lose money on the next deal. And it's not the end of the world. It's just a lesson that's teaching you, and it's going to make you do even better on the next one.
Absolutely. It's there's so many challenges, and there's so many different ways to approach. Like, everybody has a very unique story to tell in real estate too. And there's so many just uncharted turns and twists, and it's just amazing. I love hearing everybody's stories and how they got involved and the problems that they experienced along the way, and so forth and so on.
Totally. So you started with maybe looking at single family homes, started a co-hosting business, and now you're doing boutique hotels. So I guess walk me through that whole evolution.
Yeah, I think when we got started, so we actually got started with house hacking, a duplex in Kansas City. Sorry, I coughed really hard.
Show must go on.
Yeah. So that's how we got started, and then we bought another single family home. Then in the process, we learned about midterm rentals, and we're like, okay, let's try it out. Why not? Like, let's see if it worked. We love midterm rentals. Then we bought a couple more properties doing short-term rentals. And around that time was when like the market was getting really hard.
Interest rates.
Interest rates were going up. Also, Kansas City, since we got started, prices have not come down at all. If anything, like they just continue to go up and up and up. So our numbers were no longer making sense. And we were pretty, even though like some people might say we're very like aggressive in certain things, we're actually very conservative in like making an investment. Like, we really like to see every single scenario. We want to understand worst case scenario. We don't even look at the best case scenario. We don't want to get excited by that. Or it's hard, but it's just, we know that there's so much at stake and we don't want to take that risk. And the market just really got really hard to a point that like we didn't feel comfortable. But at the same time, I feel like looking back, everything makes sense and everything just falls into place exactly the way it was supposed to. At the same time was when we started making the mental shift of like, why are we continuing going after another single family home or another small multifamily? Let's go big. Like, we can do big. I know multifamily like extremely well. Let's go big. But then actually we went to a conference. I think it was Bigger Pockets that we went to that year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was BPCon in San Diego. And we ended up not staying at the main hotel with everyone else because we were just cheap, to be completely honest.
You're good. I did the exact same thing. Don't worry.
Now I'm feeling pain this night. So we stayed in an Airbnb nearby. And when we showed up, it was a boutique hotel. And we did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like everything was automated. The place was beautiful. It was probably an old office building. Like, it was a larger home, like big home. It had probably like 15 rooms, perfectly designed. And I tell Josh laughs at me because I have all my ideas in the shower. And I'm like taking a shower, about to head out. And like, I get out of the shower. I'm like, Josh, why are we not doing this? Like, we're going after multifamily. But what if we did this? Like, we have the design eye. We are trained at this. Like, why see after C class, maybe B class multifamily when we can be going after properties that need a lot of work? Maybe change. We know the zoning code. We know how to understand what can and cannot be done. Let's go for a property that it's not even shown multifamily or hotel. Let's change the use, make it into a beautiful hotel. And like, why wouldn't we do that? Like,
create the opportunity, really.
Yeah. And like, it's funny because I think like once you start thinking about something, like the story of like the red car that then you see it everywhere. The conversation we had during that BPCon was about boutique hotels. Everyone around us was like,
I don't think that's stopped ever since, to be honest.
No, exactly. It's so it everywhere. And now we're like we became obsessed, and we're like, okay, we're not doing any more single family homes. Like, we're not doing any more of that. Like, that's a way it will the 10x again. It will take the same amount of effort to close on a large deal than it will in a small deal. It's just obviously different skill sets. So let's train those skill sets. We've joined masterminds specifically for boutique hotels. That's why we started the co-hosting business, because we're like, we need to learn how to manage at scale. So let's start a co-hosting business, manage at scale, train VAs, create SOPs, like really build a business that would manage in the future hotels. Yeah. And that's really how like all the dots started to connect to get us to a boutique hotel was from that point of just realizing like you said, why not us? Like, why are we not doing this? Like, this fits exactly with our experience and expertise in design and construction.
Yeah. And I think it was a lot of replacing our 80% with the 20% so that the 20% continued to become the new 80%, so that we were constantly being like, okay, what are the things we need to reach to do now? What are the next skills that we need to bring to the table? Who are the people that we need to connect with? And really working backwards from this idea that like, we want the boutique hotel. We want to leverage our skill sets to the best of their capabilities. What are the gaps in our knowledge? What are the gaps in our experience? And how can we best connect those dots, like Dion said?
Completely. And I had that exact same feeling last year because I was buying up short-term rentals. I was like, this is a lot of effort for one house. Like, I was like, why am I putting all this effort in for one house? And I'm very much like I like to put my energy in, go big and like do it. So I like made that switch. I was like, I think like if we're going to start, like, especially if I'm starting to bring in investors and things like that, I'm like, I want those to be on substantial deals that aren't dependent on like residential zoning, right? Like, it's built for this. And I'm like, that's when you're really building a business, like a proper functioning business. And also it's so smart that you started with the co-hosting, because you were like a lot of people don't think of that working backwards. It's like, okay, where do I actually want to end up? What skills do I need to bring in that's going to actually take me to where I need to go? So that's freaking huge and really smart. I'm like, I should have thought of that.
It worked out really. I think it was kind of a great fit for us too. I mean, we can look at our clients' properties and we can help them analyze the things from a design perspective to say, these are things that we've done in our homes that helped leverage our own properties from being a good long-term rental to being a great midterm rental. What are the types of furnishings? Where do the details matter the most? And so we can, those are things that like we can do as co-hosts that not many co-hosting companies are able to provide as well. And it's helped us in the sense that like that's what we want our boutique hotels to focus on as well, or those little details and understanding the touches that really matter at the end of the day.
Completely. So I guess where are your boutique hotels currently? Like where are you purchasing them? How are you financing them? What does that look like?
So we're on our third one that we've been under contract.
So exciting.
Keeps thinking third one's the one because we've had to walk away from the first two. Just for different reasons, either zoning or just not agreeing on terms. But we have been, I think we've been focused on really value add. Like Josh said, like we don't want, but like also, and maybe it's because like of our background, maybe we're just picky. I don't know. But like there's properties like that are just, if I don't get excited about it and about designing it and about like being proud of owning that piece of property, like the amount of effort it's going to take me to make it successful, it's never going to be like something I'm so proud and like, oh my God, I did the best I could, because I'm not going to be passionate
100%.
about it.
I feel that so hard because even so I have like an interior design business, but I've gotten so picky about what I'm like, if I don't think I'm going to have fun with this and it's like, oh, I'm lit up, I'm because it's not even my main source of income, I'm like, this is no,
Yep. So I think we're very picky about like the location. Obviously, with hotels specifically, location is
very
crucial.
Yeah.
Like if people are not coming by your property, you're not gonna like people vacationing to that location. If they're not coming in that area, like you're never gonna get the numbers you want. But I think also aesthetically, like something that gets us passionate. But we've been looking at different, both like multifamily, like not multifamily, but like a building structure and glamping or cabins. Yeah, like development opportunities. There was one that we were under contract that was an office building with retail that we were like, that was sort of like our angle of like, oh, no one's buying office buildings. Let's buy buildings because we can buy them cheap. We can redesign them, especially if it's the right type of structure. Like not every structure is going to work with that, or the windows. Like it has to feel like a hotel. Right. It can't feel like an office building. But that was something that we were looking at. We're just trying to like look at things from different angles and trying to find our advantage. The second hotel we were under contract was actually a cabin building, a cabin hotel that it didn't need that much, but like our angle was like, oh, we're going to develop glamping and we're going to expand further into this. Unfortunately, like we weren't able to develop it, but and that's when we walked away. Like it was just, there was an error in the zoning that thankfully we found at the right time. But yeah, so I think we're definitely catered to like different markets. Like we're not set in one single market. Like we've looked in Kansas City, Colorado. Right now we're under contract in Palm Springs in California. But I would say like the thing that ties them all is like A locations, A type properties, or that we can convert into A type class properties, because we want to also like use our design and our back, like spend the extra dollar. Like we don't want to go cheap in the tile or the details. Like that's where things matter, because you will get that return back, and we also will enjoy the most designing it.
It's our passion and our superpower, though. So it really makes sense that those are the types of, that's the angle that we have on it. And these deals at this scale are hard to close. There's a lot of extra. It's not just like your single family home where you go through a 30-day process. It could be triple the amount of time of that, and some of ours have been that much time. And it is kind of a bummer to walk away, but it would hurt a lot more if it was something that we committed to. And so we like to look at it as it was kind of failed successfully. by knowing that we left it on our own, under our own power and by our own decisions. And yeah, one of these deals replaces a full year, of even more of buying single family
Yeah.
homes. And so it's a lot of effort, and it's just one of those things where it's less about the quantity, it's more about that, it is that 10x mentality there.
No, I absolutely love that. And so it's interesting too, because you said you had one in Kansas City and then Colorado and California. Those are expensive areas, right? So like, what is it that you were intentionally looking in those areas, or was it just like a deal that came by? Like, how did that happen?
No, we've been all of them we've found, honestly, on the
Oh,
MLS.
what?
Well, yeah.
Like, okay, wait. So
Um,
wait, hold on. So on the MLS, you mean like on like Zillow MLS, or do you mean like by
yeah.
Bizdell?
No, like LoopNet.
Oh, okay, okay.
But actually, the one we're under contract right now, it's also in Zillow.
What? That's
But
fabulous.
yeah, I think we've been super intentional, I think, or like have tried to be very intentional about what we're looking for
The
and
buy
like
box.
the buy box, the numbers that we want. Not just for ourselves, but also for our investors. We are doing syndications with these deals. So we take a huge responsibility knowing that people are putting their retirement savings on us and believing that we will do more than they would have somewhere else. So that's a huge responsibility for
Completely.
us. So if it doesn't meet kind of the requirements that we have set for the deal, then it's no longer a feasible deal. So there is more deals that we walk away from and that we don't even like, that we have the initial conversations, we loosely underwrite and we walk away. But the locations have been very intentional. We've made a list of markets that either because of their market conditions, employment conditions, vacation conditions specifically,
Seasonality is a big part of
seasonality.
it.
Why are people coming to this place? We like to stay either, I mean, if it's an urban area, then an area that it's constantly bringing, like for the type of client we want, like something like Palm Springs, that it's more like an hour and 40 minutes away from LA. So it's still pretty much in the metro
Yeah.
area, but it's bringing vacation people versus like maybe your corporate type of hotel. Like we don't want to, like have been specific about like what the experience is and who our avatar is. Or for example, the one in Colorado, we have been looking at national parks and what's around national parks and why are people coming here and what are the visitors per year. So we do a lot of research ahead of time of like what markets we like, what climates also, because also as designers, we get really excited about climates, different ways of designing and working with that climate and that environment and knowing that, I mean, right now we're also in a phase of our life where like we're incredibly flexible with where we live and kind of the amount of effort we're willing to put to our projects because we don't have children right now. So knowing that we would probably relocate to that location for the construction period to make sure we're there, making sure that everything's like happening exactly the way we want it to be. Also like making sure we're hiring the right team and that once the operations really kickstart, make sure that like it's that we're supporting it all the way through. That also has an impact of like where we choose to look at because it has to be a place that we would consider living or relocating temporarily. But no, it hasn't been just like putting a finger in a map. And very intentionally looking at the markets that we get excited about, which all those three fit the categories.
And yeah, and I think the first one that we were doing, Kansas City, we were living there at the time and we really wanted to be close, especially with our first time exploring what it even meant to do redevelopment at that scale. We were taking basically our proposal was to take a 3-story mixed use building with retail at the bottom and then basically gutting the top 2 floors and converting it into 13 boutique hotel units the number 13 being kind of cool because it was the oldest or one of the oldest buildings in Kansas City, and it kind of had a haunted house vibe going already. We were like fully in on that. And then it was the Colorado opportunity, like Deanna said, where glamping just seemed to be a natural fit for it. And it's about feeling comfortable in the places where you want to invest. Like, do you want a vacation there? Yes or no? That was a big part of it for us to get started. It does take a lot of effort and energy also to do the research for these areas. I mean, the numbers, everything is magnified. And so once you look at one in the area, you kind of keep coming back and looking again and again, especially if it's an area that you feel confident in. And that's the biggest thing, I think, if you are going to jump into something at this scale, is making sure that you love the space, the location, and it is so location driven. So feel confident in that too.
Totally.
Yeah, and not just say that you can't be successful anywhere else. I think we've really taken to heart the delayed gratification in the last 3 years. Like, we literally left Seattle to move to Kansas City for real estate, and now we're a little homeless right now.
New Jersey, right?
Yeah, we're living at Josh's mom's house. But for that same reason, like, we are 100% committed to what we want, but we know that not everyone has that flexibility. Like, we don't have children. I just quit my job. Josh's company has offices all over the country, so for him to relocate is much easier. Not everyone has all those sets of check boxes that allows them to look for properties all over the country, and if they want to be present for construction, be there. So I know of a lot of people who are very successful investing in their own market or investing where they have a team, and stick to that, because that's honestly the most important, more than oh, I love Hawaii, let's invest in Hawaii. Okay, but the logistics of that are very complicated. So maybe that's not a good idea.
Yeah, and that's for example, for me, I eventually do want to go international, but right now where I'm at, it just doesn't make it logistically, it doesn't make any sense. Right?
Exactly.
And it's I have some students who come in and they're always eventually they also want to go international, or maybe they're thinking of buying internationally now. And I'm like, okay, well, what are your actual goals? And the goal is, to hit that financial freedom number really quickly. I'm like, you're not going to do that buying a new construction building in Tulum that's going to be finished in 2025,
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, well, we are wrapping up here, but I'm going to ask you the 3 final interview questions that I like to ask everyone. So number 1 is, what is your ideal perfect day?
Well, I'll let you answer this.
You'll let me answer this one first. Okay. Oh, man. Well, I think I'm going to take a day out of my own little vivid vision, kind of. And we've had this idea of living on a houseboat in Seattle again. And, waking up, we have a couple of kids, maybe a couple of dogs too, and jumping right in the water off of the, this one part of the boat. Maybe doing a couple laps in the in Lake Union, paddleboarding or something like that. And then I think it's just more of what we're currently doing. I probably don't have a job at this point. And we're both kind of at a point with our real estate that work is optional, like what we've been dreaming of. And if we don't want to take on a project, it might just be that we want to travel to Colombia, or we might be getting on the plane to go visit one of our boutique hotels. But that's kind of the perfect day in my mind, is just spending it the way that we want to, and really holding on to that as the dream of what we are doing right now. Not the dream, but maybe more so the goal.
Yeah, I love that.
How would
I mean, I feel like you stole my answer.
Well, that's so good that you're aligned. Really good that you're aligned there.
It sound like I copied you.
Well, go ahead. You add something to it. I'm sure there's something I missed.
No, I think, it's really funny. Josh and I, a few years ago, wrote our vivid visions completely separate from each other. And obviously, as designers, we're very visual people. And we designed our house already. And we were talking about it to each other after. And we're like, it's the exact same house. Yeah. So it's really funny. No, but to all of that, I think I would just add, like, yeah, I think my goal with all of this real estate nonsense and craziness is to really live very intentional. I think my perfect day would be like a day where like I get to enjoy everything Josh said, but like everything I do is intentional, and it's because I planned my life to be that way, whether it's with the kids, with the puppies, with the water, with them doing yoga, or if that is where I'm at, like we're working on a super cool project and I'm working 18 hours a day, like I don't care. Like I'm doing what I'm passionate and I'm living a life full of intention where it feels like it was worth it. Like there is this feeling of after my dad passed away, and same with Josh's dad passed away, that they worked so hard and they never got to enjoy their life. Both of them died without really hitting retirement, never like barely enjoyed grandkids. Like it was just like at the end of the day, what was all of that for? And I I think like that really struck both of us of like really being intentional and making sure we're living a life that at the end of the day we will be proud of when we look back, and that it involves all of our family being there and just really loving life. Like we don't want to live a life that we both feel like this is what we do because we have to,
Yeah.
or because it pays the bills. So whatever that life looks like, that would be the perfect day.
I love that. And then question number 2 is, what is your mantra? If you have one.
Like we constantly say something, for some reason I just blanked.
I think I'll start again, and you can feel free to add something probably different from this one. But I think our mantra is to be kind of a shapeshifter. It's like really, I think being rigid about the way you think about things or how you approach a problem is really going to slow you down. And like Deanna was saying before, like we don't have kids right now. We're kind of living in, influx of a lot of different things. And it's been kind of also our superpower because we've had the ability to adapt to a lot of kind of tough situations that we've been placed in along the way. We had a house flood that displaced us from our home, and it was kind of our way of saying, well, the way we looked at it was our dads were telling us, don't get comfortable right now. You're not meant to be comfortable in this living arrangement. And it was a beautiful house in Kansas City. And it just caused us to adapt by focusing on the things we went to Kansas City to do, not to get comfortable and have, a family at that point. And I just think that it's allowed us to connect with a lot of different people. And I would say that being adaptable has been a way for us to always be like, well, that didn't work out. Okay, let's find a different way to do what we need to do. What would you say to that?
I feel like I have 2 that I constantly repeat to myself. I think one of them is everything happens for a reason. Like I try not to force things. Like I want to be intentional and take control over life, but there's times where it's like things are out of your control. I try not to focus on anything that's out of my control or stress over things that are not in my control. And when things go wrong and things don't go your way, it doesn't matter how hard you worked for it. Like everything always happens for a reason, and you don't understand until you look back and you're like, thank God for that. Like that put me in the right path. That actually helped me to be where I am. So I tried to be very flexible with life and not get upset, and just always I try for that to be the first emotion I feel when I'm upset or things don't go my way. It's just like breathe, like there's a reason for this. And I think the second one that I always repeat to myself is that life doesn't give you anything you cannot handle. I think that we are, I don't know, it's like I see life as levels or like lessons that you're constantly learning. And it's a bunch of challenges that like you wouldn't be placed in that situation if you weren't ready for that challenge and that lesson. You just have to figure it out how. But you're never given more than you can handle. So every time I'm stressed and I'm like figuring out like, okay, how are we going to do this? Am I prepared? Like, it's just taking a big breath and being like, okay, I'm here because I placed myself in this situation and I have all the tools around me to get out of it. I just need to figure out how. But I can do it.
Completely. And I very much resonate with the life gives you what you can handle, because even sometimes like I'm very much like, I like to bulldoze through and I want to do more and more and more bigger. And sometimes it's like, you're really not ready for that just yet. And life will like keep stopping you. You're like, okay, taking a step back.
I got
like, let's recalibrate. I get it. Like, I don't have the people right now to be able to do this.
Exactly.
And then final question, what does wealth mean to you?
To me, I think it's so many things. But
these are all great questions, by the way.
Yeah.
I love that you end with these questions.
Oh, thank you. I like them too.
They're very introspective, which I really appreciate. I think it's living intentionally, like whatever. I think it means something different for everyone. But I think living an intentional life, I think that's the kind of wealth that I'm after, of like time freedom, money freedom, family freedom, like health freedom, like it, but like being purposeful with the time. Like, I think we've both been shown like life is so short and like life is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Life can be taken away from you any minute. So I'm really trying to live a life full of wealth, which means to me like being very intentional with everything I do.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could really add much to that, because that's pretty much the exact way I would describe it too. It is all about being intentional and just aligning yourself in a way with the things you want to accomplish. And I think that a big component of that too is the health component. I think nothing matters if you don't have health, and that's not a promise at any given point. And that's something we both learned in a very harsh way, months apart from each other, as we were just barely considering really what real estate actually could bring. And so, yeah, that's the only thing I could really add to that answer.
Amazing. Well, those were all like such lovely answers. So thank you so much for just answering super sincerely. And, I know a lot of people will be able to take a lot from that. But I guess, where can people find you?
Yeah, I think we're the most active, I think, on Instagram. Our handle is at D.I.FI. And then our website, if people, we've been pushing a lot of different aspects of our background through either management, design, or investing with us. And our website is designinvestfi.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and have a wonderful day, all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to Wonderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.